Do Less by Kate Northrup. Here's a question. Why would I be reviewing a book about time management for moms? Honestly, very honestly, it's a coincidence. This is the third book I'm reviewing in a row about self-development and productivity for women. I have never reviewed 3 books in a row on the same subject, I don't think, but I have a really specific SEO-driven way of choosing what books to review next, unless something very popular and pressing comes out in the moment. So this is very, very much by chance, and I'm surprised I'm reviewing this now. But the thing is, in a world where, fairly relevant example, parents will give their kids iPads instead of pacifiers once they reach a certain age, and it works because of how addictive screen time is. The importance of effective time management today is impossible to overstate. How is a mom supposed to go about this, let alone a busy one? Let's talk about it. Just a little overview of what you'll see in the description. There are affiliate links, and if you buy anything through them, like maybe this book, then I get commission, which helps me build this channel and keep making these videos. You can also find this book and many others on my Amazon storefront, but any books I mention in this video, chances are I have reviewed them, and I'll drop those in the description too. So affiliate links, Amazon storefront, and other reviews. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam, and I want to make self-growth normal, because people shouldn't have to look this information up. It should just be mainstream knowledge. If you agree, then please make sure to smash that like button. So in the introduction, you can tell that the author has a lot on her mind regarding the state of working moms and working women in general today, how they make their money, how much time they spend doing what they do, and it's very obvious that she has put a lot of time, thought, and research into these topics and the cultural, societal, and economic implications that they pose. But again, the importance of a book like this in a year like 2024 can't possibly be overstated when you consider how busy everyone always seems to be, how pressed for time and impatient we get, and we all seem to have so much going on. I think much of this can be playfully touched upon with Oliver Burkeman's 4,000 Weeks. I feel like it's not going to be the last time that I reference that book throughout this review, but she described a time when her body forced her to do less, and she noticed over that time that she was getting more done. Many of us are under the impression that if we do more, then more will get done. But does it really get done? Have we tried doing less? Now, when I say her body, I am a male, you know, he, him. That involves some things I don't experience. And I know that might sound silly or unnecessary to disclose, but if you take the time to check out the book for yourself, it will become obvious what I'm getting at here. Not painfully obvious, but obvious. And I'd like to add that there's nothing wrong with that. Chapter 1 is the global evidence for doing less. This chapter focused on global evidence that suggests less time spent working can result in more work getting done. They went all over the place literally doing this, from Mexico to, why the hell not in a book like this, Sweden. Chapter 2 is your worth, your cycles, and momentum. Okay, this whole thing where women run on a roughly 28-day cycle, I knew about that, and I didn't know that men run on a 24-hour cycle. I mean, I did, but don't women run on that cycle and a 28-day cycle? Here she talks about the 28-day cycle in terms of productivity, which I've literally never heard anything like this in a book. It is very unique and probably valuable information, the type of stuff that, you know, if you're a girl, you'd understand it for sure. Chapter 3 is the upward cycle of success. This was a further geek out on the cycle and how it's a microcosm of the seasons in the lunar cycle. And it's pretty crazy to think about it, how you could be doing nothing, just sitting down doing nothing, and your body's doing like 99,000 different things for you. If you can't tell by now, the whole thing about it being for moms, it is definitely not simply for those who identify as men. Not that I figured anybody watching this review would, but I definitely thought it writing it. Chapter 4 is egg wisdom. I've never heard of this, and if you are a woman, you might want to, and I'm saying that based on what people have said about it, and it also just sounds so cool. This is a phenomenon of feminine magnetism that every woman has experienced at some point in her life. Of course, over the years, it has been suppressed, so not many people know about it, and it's just not a mainstream concept. It kind of reminded me of the sex transmutation chapter from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, my favorite book ever. If you're a woman, by the way, this whole thing of egg wisdom, it is, I'll say this, it's worth paying attention to. The actual specifics I don't feel comfortable discussing because I'd rather just let the author do that, but the way she talks about it, it honestly sounds like a superpower or like magic or something. Chapter 5 is Introduction to the Experiments. This was, well, an introduction to the experiments. But most of the chapters from here are the experiments she talks about, and I think there are like 14 or something. Chapter 6 is Track Your Cycle and the Moon. I learned from this chapter that when she was explaining how men pinned hysteria on women for thousands of years, that was one of the most powerful things about women was their menstrual cycles and their ability to create humans. When I really gave over to learning about the 4 phases and how I could organize my life around how I felt depending on which phase I was in, it was like I'd found this gigantic, beautiful room in my home filled with all of my favorite things and decorated exactly to my style that I'd never known about. I'd been sitting on the perfect way to organize my life, my project, and my energy my whole life and never even knew. But the cool thing is once you know something, you can never unknow it, so I dove in. Chapter 7 is discover what really matters to you. This was along the lines of prioritizing, which is very time management based, as in looking at what you spend your time on and seeing how many of these things contribute to what matters most to you. Chapter 8 is listen to your body. The main idea of this chapter is that our bodies are sending us signals all the time through our energy and how we sleep, our immune system, our skin, and more. But we can listen to it, or we could ignore the signals until they get louder. What she suggests is listening to your body, closing your eyes, and seeing how you feel. Interesting advice, like is there any pain, comfort, or discomfort, or tension? If it had a color, what would it be? If it had a message for you, what would it say? Chapter 9 is check your vitals. This has to do with the Pareto principle. This has to do with the vitals, as in what's vital. 20% of what you do is responsible for 80% of the results. This is such a classic time management principle that people have been talking about for well over 100 years now. What Pareto called the 20% was the vital few, and the author suggests that we repeatedly check these vital few and keep track of them to make sure that we're maximizing our results. Almost any productivity book is bound to talk about this principle at some point, and it is really nothing new whatsoever. I do love the personal touches she added throughout the book to things like this because it tells us that she is a human and not Brian Tracy, who wrote it. Chapter 10 was receive help. Much of this was about delegation. I was raised by a woman who over time had no problem getting help with typical mother or wife tasks because it would have simply been impossible for her to do it all with the career she chose. She calls the way she lived for the past 15 years or so assisted living because she asks for help in basically every area of her life that she doesn't absolutely love doing, or that she isn't well suited for, or that she isn't currently working on growing through challenges. Chapter 11 is ask for help. I didn't know that before the industrial age with this chapter, if a woman needed help at home, there was always an extra set of hands, and now there isn't. Like, meanwhile, now you gotta take your kids to school and cook dinner and clean the house and do laundry and water the plants and take your son to a doctor's appointment and your daughter to a football game and help them with their homework all at the same time. But you have to have a hand free at all times so you can answer other moms' texts and maybe check social media every now and then and ensure that you're posting pictures on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest for the world to see, 30 times a day. It's much more than a full-time job. But those kids, they will grow up and work, and even their kids might. It is a full-time job. You can't say just because the mom isn't being paid that it's not a job. It's stupid. I can make a whole video about that. Chapter 12 is simplify. Simplifying things is a tried and true method for time management. A lot of these have been around for a while, and people have been talking about them for a while. It has been around forever. As much as I hate to say it, there's nothing new here. What I think this chapter still brought to the table was there were ways that it can be used by moms and entrepreneurs using, of course, the author's personal examples. But that's something that she kind of sprinkled throughout all of these chapters. When I'm saying, there's not that much new here, she did put her own personal touch on it in terms of how moms can use it, which I really liked. Chapter 13 is manage your energy. She did an excellent job here with laying out examples of how to do this. Again, my favorites were, well, what if you have an intolerable boss? What if you're always busy when your kids come home from school? And what if your mom needs to rely on you for her emotional needs? Chapter 14 is make sleep a spiritual practice. I might add with this chapter, the importance of sleep and making sure that you get quality sleep is more easily and thoroughly covered in a book like Why We Sleep or Sleep Revolution, but these two books are commonly cited or referenced in books just like Do Less. Chapter 15 is become a time bender. This chapter was not what I thought it was about. I thought it was about The Last Airbender, but for time, I have no idea. This chapter was about being present in the moment, and it's not as much about bending time as it really is just that. Again, 4,000 Weeks comes to mind, but all these books about modern time management coming out will involve old and new methods, but they'll involve new perspectives that pertain to technology and digital boundaries in life. She has a whole list in this chapter of those digital boundaries. It's a fire list, like keeping her phone on silent all the time, turning her phone upside down when she's busy, almost no notifications are on. I've been doing that forever and it totally changed my life, etc. Chapter 16 is streamline your to-do list. One thing that stood out to me in this chapter was when she talked about having a to-do list where you don't put a time on anything. Like, I don't have to do it by this time, but instead you just make it a weekly to-do list instead of a daily to-do list. This gives you so much more flexibility and it makes you feel so much less pressured to get everything done by a specific time. I think Jeff Bezos is the one who said you should be like adamant about your goals, but flexible about how you get to them. Chapter 17 is open the lines of communication. This one is more for like couples and other relationships. What she said is that what we choose life, business partners, and even close friends who will trigger our deepest wounds so that we're able to heal in a profound way. And once we realize that and are willing to do the work involved in it, then we can move on to the logistics of living in partnership and family with others. This made so much sense. This woman has such a clear way of looking at these things, and I found it very refreshing. Chapter 18 is surrender. I'll just be blunt here. This was not it wasn't really that easy of a book to review. Interestingly enough, it's probably one of the best books I've ever had the displeasure of saying that about. And let's break down the why for both of those things. Why wasn't it easy to review? Well, it had a lot of very female specific terminology and I'm just not the right person to go over that stuff with. Why is it one of the best books I've had the displeasure of saying that about? Well, it was damn good. I can't argue with that. And chapter 19 is Let It Be Enough. My favorite thing about the whole thing by far is this very, very unique viewpoint and framework that the author has developed, being raised by a woman who literally wrote books about female anatomy. She knew so much about it. And yet the author started working when she was turned, what, like 10 years old? Then she started her first business right when she turned 18, which is still thriving today. She was a workhorse, right? And so she becomes fascinated with this relationship between, especially having kids herself, the menstrual cycle and one's own productivity and self-development. Name one other book about this. Oh, wait. No one can do it. Quotes. Nothing moves until something happens. Nature never rushes, yet everything always gets done. When I feel overwhelmed, it's often because I'm tired, not because I have too much to do. Direction 1. The author actually said it herself who this book is for, so I'll trust her judgment. She said this book is for anyone who identifies as a woman who has the dual vocation of being a nurturer and having a career. Her words. She also said that if you're not a mother in the traditional sense, maybe you're a nanny or something, the experiments and perspectives in the book will absolutely apply to you and they will help you if you implement them. Direction 2. If you like this book, a couple different books I recommend checking out: The Female Brain by Luann Brizendine, The Confidence Code by Claire Shipman and Katty Kay, and How Women Rise by Sally Helgeson and Marshall Goldsmith. Do Less by Kate Northrup. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere and I will see you then.